Okay, we are live. Hey, everybody, it's Uncle Grumpy. As I said, I'm coming to you live to have you join me so we can talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. So let me make sure I've got everything going right here. Let's see. Okay, looks like it's working. Hopefully you guys are having a good night. If you haven't done it yet, download the Zoom app. Should just take a minute and then you can join right in if you'd like. Let's see. Okay, I put the link in the comments. Hi, Deb. How are you? I see we got a few people jumping in. It's not telling me who, though, but it's showing numbers. So I see quite a few of you jumping in. If you guys want to join me in the room, as I said, download the Zoom app if you haven't yet. Once you do, just click on the link. It'll bring you right into the waiting room, and then I'll let you in the room, and well, you can pull up a chair. So let's have a conversation. This could be interesting. Things have been getting pretty heated lately online. I've been in a lot of discussions, we'll call them for now, about politics, about religion and politics, about just about everything. So come on in and let's talk about it. All right, let's see. Well, it's not even telling me who's joining, but we got one coming in. So I think I have to reset the thing though every time somebody joins. Deb, I see Deb is joining in. There we go. It's got you that's got your name at the table. You just gotta turn on your camera, I think. You've got the chair right next to me. All right, let's see. Hello, Stacy. Stacy, why don't you go come on in and join us? Let's see. Deb, can you hear me yet? She must be having a connection problem. Okay, we've got a few people watching. Come on in. Let's talk. Might just send this out to a few people in Messenger. Okay. All right, Deb, I don't know if you can hear me. Maybe send me a message. I don't know. Your name is sitting in a chair, but maybe if I turn that off. No, it says you're sitting there. So I think you just need to turn on your speaker and microphone, maybe. All right, so I've got another browser over here open. I'm sending out a few invites. Isaac, I saw you online a few minutes ago. I just sent you an invite. Maybe you want to come in and talk about the petitions you're passing out. Deb, I thought I started to hear something there.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Trying to find, okay, I got you.
Hey, Krista, how are you? If you'd like to join us, just hit the link. Come on in, Krista. Hey, Deb, there you are.
Yeah, I made it. I was curious if Matthew Campbell was here.
What's that?
I was curious if Matthew Campbell was joining, and is there a charge?
I see. Okay.
I'm
Well,
not that curious, really.
I know, but I think I just sent him an invite. Hang on. If I didn't, I will.
Yeah, we need to see what he's up to.
Yep. I'm sure he's up to no good. So how are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm really getting tired of the hyperkalemia. I've never dealt with potassium overloading. But
Yeah.
it'll pass, I'm sure. Overall, really good. And you?
I'm okay. I'm enjoying a book that one I've been posting about, that Jesus and John Wayne.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's on my page. I put a link to it. I'm really enjoying it. I don't remember the lady's name who wrote it, but let's see. We got someone else that joined us. Hey, there's Teresa. Okay. Come on in, Teresa. Let's see. All right, there we go. We got her sitting at the table now. Every time someone joins, I have to re-click the link so it'll put him on the table. Hi, how are you?
I didn't know this was a thing.
This is a thing.
Wow.
Kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never seen this before. So there's 3 of us at the table. How are you guys?
We're good.
Really
Yeah,
good. And you?
Not bad, not bad. I just got home a little bit ago.
well, this table has 3, but you know, if more people show up, we can fit more. We can move to something like this,
Oh, I like
Or-
this.
or we can go to more of a classroom setting if that works for everybody. So you got all kinds of choices. You can even put up whatever you want of your own picture. So,
Oh, that's neat. I like that.
yeah, when there's just me and Lawrence, we usually do the fireplace, but that just sits 2 people, and it's just you and the other person sitting across with a fireplace in between you, sitting there talking. So
Awesome.
it's entirely too much fun.
It is. It's really cool.
And let's see, it gets much worse. Let's see, figure it out. Yeah, Lawrence is always doing some cow head or something. There's some avatars. If I can figure out where they're at. Let's see, video settings.
So is this like a separate app from Zoom?
No, this is all in
Nope.
Zoom. Yeah, it's all in Zoom. Let's see. I just can't figure out where everything is yet. Oh, I can change that. Let's get some mushrooms behind me.
There we go. I'm gonna just do a plain color behind me.
Do a
So
what?
what's the topic today? I mean, what are we discussing here?
Well, we're just discussing whatever anybody wants to talk about, really. I mean, what I've been talking about online the last few days has mostly been things like religion and politics, but I see a lot of people are talking about the petitions. Those are out. So I'm game for what anybody wants to talk about. And if we need to go offline and do it, then we just shut off the live part and keep talking.
Okay. No, I mean, I have seen a few people putting out stuff over the petitions. I've seen a few dispensaries where they were going in. You know, one of the big things, and a lot of people have been asking me, was the difference between 818, 819, and 820. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's something that's been a little bit confusing to people because, you know, when we look at the history of 820, and I'm sure you guys, if anybody's familiar with the history of 820, you know, you guys were familiar with it being when Ryan wrote 806 and 807. So I think people are still comparing 806, 807 to what 820 is, which is, you know, absolutely different. You know, that's one thing that Ryan had done different, which is shocking to me, is that back when we fought 806, 807, the big argument was that we don't want it because it's a constitutional amendment. And now we have the same group arguing that, you know, 820 is not a constitutional amendment. So, I mean, I'm not sure which it is because I'm not comfortable with putting anything that I'm not 100% in agreement with as far as constitutionally. I don't know if I went on too much of a rant there.
No,
No.
that you're doing perfect. You're doing just fine. Deb, your turn.
Well, I think the people didn't expect so much change. Well, I don't know. We knew that 7088, you know, that it would get changed in legislation, but I don't think we expected it. Well, I sure didn't expect as much as it has. So I think a lot of people that didn't want a constitutional amendment before are wanting the protection of a constitutional amendment now. That's
Yeah.
just a guess.
Yeah, after like the moratorium and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of things.
But I have to, and I know this isn't just you. You're just saying what you're hearing. So
Right.
When I push back, I'm not pushing back.
No problem. We're just talking. We're just
Right.
talking.
But so many in the community pushed for that moratorium. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it, but I saw people at the Capitol on a regular basis from this community that were in support of the moratorium. I saw people online screaming about how we need a moratorium, how we had to stop the whatever. I'm not in the business, so I didn't have anything to do with that bill. Okay, but I found it spot on that the one day when everybody from the community went down to the Capitol, I stood on one half of the room and spoke to people like Daryl Carnes, who were mad about that bill and some other bills. I think the prepackaged bill too. And then I talked to some other people on the other side of the same room, the same big room, that were there to push that bill, that had helped write that bill. So it just, you know, and they don't even realize that their friends on the other side of the room is who they should be mad at, not anybody else. Because
No,
the
you're
community
absolutely
pushed
right.
because the community pushed for a moratorium. So to now say we need a constitutional amendment because the moratorium, if anyone's saying that, would just be a bit hypocritical. But again, I'm not in the business and I'm not going in the business. So, you know, I don't care either way for the most part.
Yeah, and you're really correct on that, Chris, because, you know, it really bothers me because, you know, if you're not up there seeing the entire situation and how everything is playing out, then, you know, it's very, very easy to blame the legislation and say, hey, they're out to get us. Hey, they're doing this. But everything that was written and everything that was suggested was not come up at the top of those legislators' heads. There were
Yeah.
businesses and there were people and lobbyists that were pushing for certain agendas, which is why we ended up with what we did.
Yeah,
Right.
like I've said on multiple occasions, every single lobbyist that I know up there has been taking an enormous amount of cannabis money all year. So, I mean, that's their new client. So they're fine with that. And the cannabis community is getting what they lobbied for.
Mhm.
So I see a little conflict there that I think might be worth addressing in how it's being presented. But again, I'm not seeing a lot of it, just seeing a lot of people wanting to sign it so far. And I'll sign 819 and I already signed 820. You know, we'll see if any of them get enough signatures, and then we can have the argument about which one we're going to vote for. But I think
I'm trying to stay neutral as far as making a decision. But me personally, you know, I feel like at some point I do have to address it. Do have to, you know, make a choice of which one. I don't really care if rec passes or doesn't pass. It's never been my priority. But if it does pass, then I want to make sure that it's the right version.
well,
Because
like I said, I want to sign both, but my one and only priority here is, well, not my only, but one of my biggest priorities is ending the 4,000 to 6,000 people being arrested every year.
exactly.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
I honestly, when it comes to that, I really don't give too much concern for the businesses. I'm concerned about that. So 819 and 820 would both end that. So for that reason, I'm going to sign both of them again. Then we'll see if any of them get enough signatures to get on the ballot, and then we can, you know, get yelled at by people for saying we'll sign whichever one we say we're going to sign. So
I haven't signed any of them. I'm be honest with you. I haven't signed any of them. You know, obviously I've had conversations with both sides and both, you know, authors of, I mean, obviously we know how everything was written and how that played out. Um, you know, but I have had pretty good conversation with Ryan Kiesel, which was really difficult for me because I fought him so hard on 806 and 807. I mean, I was pretty ruthless on that. So I'm pretty proud of what he's come up with now. And I told him that too. You know, I went up to him and I was like, hey, you know, I fought you pretty hard on 806 and 807. I'm not really going to fight. I'm not going to fight any of them because at the end of the day, I mean, it's what the people want. But it's really hard for me to get on board on something constitutional just because, you know, if something needs to be changed, I know I'm going to be the one that's going to be trying to change it. And I know the work behind dealing with, you know, the entire voting population just to get them on board or get them interested in whatever the changes are going to be versus dealing with 149 legislators, which to other people that seems very difficult. But to me, it doesn't seem that difficult because it's, you know, that's something that I do
well,
all the time.
I completely understand that. I would ask, and it has nothing to do with any camps whatsoever. I would just ask that everybody sign both 819 and 820 because they both put an end to that number of people being arrested. That's all. So, and Deb, what do you think?
Well, I was a strong never wrecker forever because
Yeah, you and I
the
used to argue about
788
that a lot.
Yeah, a lot. God can get mad at you a little bit every now and then. But,
Yeah,
um,
the good old days.
yeah. But now, I just think because 788 rolled out the way it did, it just wasn't implemented with the vision that I had, I guess, as a true medical program that was open to everybody. But I mean, the legislatures still view this as a rec bill cloaked in a medical bill, as a medical initiative, and
Right.
I just think we're not going to do away. And it's my opinion. I don't know. Really been out of the loop this year, but I just don't think that medical's going to get the respect it deserves unless there's a rec program in place. That's just my
So,
take.
just to highlight that, a message when we did used to argue about this, but when we stopped yelling at each other and we had our first sit down at the Capitol, remember that? I remember that.
Yes, I do.
And I said, we have to bring in rec because it's the only way we're going to fix this medical program. So you're now on that, in that camp? Is that?
I was still dreaming. I mean, I still.
No, I'm
I still think
I'm not trying to burn you for how you thought before. I'm trying to ask,
No,
is that where you're at now? Is that where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, because I've visited with too many people out there that just, they don't get it. And I think if we
Okay.
had the two programs, that medical would get the attention it deserves. I don't know.
Right. I agree. You know, after the first year, one of the conversations I had the most in the Senate was, hey, if we could get rec passed, would you guys be willing to drop the taxes on the medical? And everybody I talked to in that building said yes. Now, I'm not saying they would, and that was 2 years ago, I think. But you know, they have said that, so they understood the necessity of what you feel now. Of maybe we can't take the joint out of anybody's mouth. I was always told, don't use that phrase. They don't like it, but it's the reality. Don't take the joint out of anybody's mouth. And maybe we can find a way to fix the medical program. So that would be pass rec. And then we can take a look at how to construct or adjust what we have to become more of a real, what we all intended.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, like I said, either way, it doesn't bother me if we have rec or we don't have rec. But if we were able to separate the two programs, you know, Chris, what my passion's always been is, you know, having patient privacy and fair testing. I think as long as we have just a one program where, you know, one size fits all, we can't really justify those extra protections.
So in that particular case, what you're saying, bringing in rec might make that more possible.
I think so.
Well, look at that. We all agree. It's not about rec. It's not about rec.
No.
It's not about rec for any
Right.
of us. But I think that we all three could agree at this point that rec is a good thing because it will allow us to fix what we all intended to begin with.
Right.
So that reason enough, in my mind, is reason enough to sign 819 and 820.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
mean,
think?
either or.
Okay.
I'm not
get
gonna
you
tell,
to
I'm
tell
not
me
gonna tell people. I'm not
before we're
gonna tell
done here,
people
you're
what
going to
to
say you're
do.
going to sign them all. So
I mean, if I sign one of them, we already know which way I'm going to lean. I'm going to lean towards the one that is going to require the least amount of work on my part. So
I understand. Isaac, why don't you
Partial.
join us if you can? He hasn't commented in a few minutes, so he may not still be here. But Isaac, if you're watching, join us. I kind of agree with what he says here. Sign them all. You know, vote for them all. I don't.
Oh, what would happen? Well, I guess the constitutional amendment would take precedent over 820 if they
Yeah.
all passed.
Yeah, Lawrence has explained to me how the overlap would be affected. By the way, I'm seeing in the screen over here, my shirt is doing weird stuff. If my shirt's making it all fuzzy, somebody say something, I'll change shirts real quick. But over here where I'm watching, it looks just fine. So anyway, you were saying, Deb?
What was I saying?
Jim says, why not 18? Why not 818? That's a good question that I've not addressed. Here we go. Because I think 818, in my opinion, is entirely too much baggage to put in the Constitution. And the likelihood of it ever passing is beyond slim. So I don't like it. I didn't like it. When it was written.
My problem with 818 is this, Chris, is the point of why 818 was introduced was to put the OMMA into a separate agency. And now that the Senate has passed that and they put the OMMA into a separate agency, then I feel like it's going to overlap and conflict with the changes they're already starting to make. So I think it's just a little more complicated. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it is complicated for sure. My reasons aren't, solid ones to hills to die on. There's too many small ones.
Yeah.
I just don't have I don't have any faith in that one.
Well, I think 819 was really introduced to get 818 passed, but I don't think that they knew that the legislation was going to go ahead and put the OMMA into a separate agency.
Yeah.
How does 818 differ from the structure that was set up for OMMA in this legislative session?
It's really not that different. I mean, there's a lot of similarities as far as to how it was structured because the initial author had given both the information to JED and to the OMMA. So that's why you see a lot of
governor's appointment.
Well, you'll see a lot of similarities as far as how it was structured on what they're structuring now, just because there were multiple people. Well, I knew a few of the people that were involved in structuring that in 818 and also with the OMMA.
Isaac, you want to join us? He's still there. Just commented.
Yeah, just hop on this Zoom.
Yeah, I know his Zoom works.
Come join the wall of people.
Yeah, if more people show up, like I said, we can do a different room. There's even one that looks like the side of an apartment where everybody's looking out the window of an apartment.
What?
Yeah, that one holds the most, I think. You guys see the picture behind me? I thought this was just entirely too appropriate. Some people ask if it's photoshopped, okay? And I have owned this photo since the day I took it in 2018. This is an outhouse that was hanging from a crane over the state capitol. Let me move out of the way.
Wow.
That is not Photoshop.
So what's the backstory here?
There was all kinds of construction going on. We were there for Weed Wednesdays, for the joint committee. And I walked outside to get on my motorcycle to ride all the way back to Haskell. And I turn around and that is hanging over my head right there. If I can figure out how to do it. I'm not good at this sort of stuff. I got to practice this. There we go. Next time I'll practice.
You're no Vanna White. I'll give you that much.
What?
You're no Vanna White.
Yeah, you're right about that. I have a lot of white, as you can see, but
I always say I'm Vanna Mexican.
So yeah, that's an outhouse, and I cannot explain why a crane that size was holding an outhouse over the state capitol, other than dropping off elected officials. I don't know. I'm throwing ideas out there. I don't know. Blush. Oh no. It's so funny. You think it's got to be photoshopped. I mean,
no. I have a picture with my best friend and I. We were driving around one day and there was a construction zone, and in the middle of this median, I guess it had been really, really windy. It blew over a porta potty in the middle of this median. So of course I have this bright idea that I want to take a picture and pretend like I was inside the porta potty and I flew it, it came flying out of it as it was tipped over. So we pull over on the side of the road and my best friend's like, T, like, we can't be doing this. Like, we're going to get in trouble, as she follows me with the camera ready to take a picture. So anyway, I have an epic photo where it looks like I'm flying out of a porta potty in the middle of a construction zone. So I guess we all have that porta potty picture.
Yeah, hey, everybody has a porta potty story, don't they?
Well, if you don't have one, then it's time to get one.
Yeah.
We can all put it in our background.
Everybody should
next
have
rodeo, I'll get one.
everybody should have a porta potty story,
Yeah.
especially
No,
if you
I
grew up in
mean,
Oklahoma.
listen, what's really amazing about this meeting right now is that we really don't disagree. This never happens.
Well, I mean, the main goal here, I think, needs to be, again, the best for everybody, for other people. It shouldn't be just what's best for me, myself, and I. It's what's best for everybody else. And those being harmed by cannabis the most are those being arrested. So we should do, I think, whatever it takes to stop that first. And if we can do other stuff along the way, fine. But I'm not making all that other stuff a priority.
No.
Not anymore. The only priority I have is ending that harm still being caused by things like, the laws against cannabis, even though it's legal. So anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're still jailing people over this. It's beyond crazy.
Well,
I don't get it.
they're not just doing it willy-nilly either. They're using it very deliberately. And when you look at the racial breakdown of the arrests, then it becomes very clear what's going on here. And so again, I think we just need to pass full access, stop the arrests, and then we can all come together on some sort of reasonable medical program that has no taxes and, good quality, safe product and things like that. And I think we'll be taken more seriously at the Capitol because they know in their mind the people that would fit into a recreational program. I'm not saying, I know a lot of people can say it's all medical. Well, I'm not going to have that argument. I'm going to say in their mind, the people that they believe would fit into a full access program versus a medical program, they think it's 80 to 90%. Most of them do anyway. They don't believe we have 400,000 people in Oklahoma who need cannabis in their mind. And I personally think an enormous amount of people won't get the card, but the people that use cannabis in Oklahoma will go way up. The people that use it medically will go way up because people that can't use it medically now for whatever, because they can't get the card, they will do that. And not just can't get the card, won't get the card, whatever the reason, it doesn't matter.
Let's be realistic about that though, Chris, because I think you made a really, really valid point in saying that when you say, 400,000 patients or they don't believe that many patients are there. But one thing that Oklahoma is really, really different in is we don't have purchase limits. We have possession limits because you can go from dispensary to dispensary buying your limit of what you can possess. And those products are then being sold to non-card holding patients. So that patient count is a lot higher than the state even realizes because you might have one card holder supplying 3 or 4 people. And that's why their numbers are skewed as well because they're looking at, how much product is being produced versus how much people can actually consume in the state and how those numbers don't measure out. So, the product is going somewhere. They open that up to recreational. If it's, if we're dealing with the black market, all of that black market sales is then going to be taxed. I feel like some of it is being taxed because I feel like some of the patients are buying for non-patient or non-card holders. But, just looking at that 400,000 and looking at the amount of product being sold, then, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that obviously someone's buying product for people that don't have cards. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've been shocked how many people I've gone to visit over the years. And I get there and I have to sit there and wait because they're running to a dispensary to get something for somebody else. It's just like the old days. I'm scratching my head as I'm seeing this go on. And it's been so many people I've visited over the last few years. And again, I've been blown away because damn near every single person who I've stopped and visited with them at their house has been doing this. Every card holder, not the ones in the business, okay, but every non-business related card holder I know, I've visited their house and had to wait because they were in the middle of doing the same stuff we used to do before it was legal. But
Right.
yes, it is getting taxed. They are paying the tax at the store for the product. The problem again falls on that person is at risk, and that's the problem. That person could then, get arrested on the way home. They don't have a card, and people are getting arrested for small amounts and don't have a card. They're being run through the system. They're being put on probation or parole. Some of them eventually sometimes test dirty because they need cannabis. And boom, they're now in jail for a year, and some of these people get cards and it doesn't do any good. And
Some of these people are elderly, like a lot of elderly. Like you think there's this delinquent young people thing, but no, you have elderly people that are just so afraid of being a part or being on any type of database or having any record of them wanting to do it. That's what I'm seeing the majority of is the elderly community. That's like, what if they take our guns, or what if they, take our rights, or what if my doctor fires me, or what if my friends
What
find
if
out
they
I
take
have.
your federal,
Yeah,
your
no,
federal
they're
retirement? That worry about that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm seeing more of the fear in the elderly community than I am in the young. They don't have anything to lose. They don't care. It really is like a lot of older people that I hear this from.
Yeah, well, these people I'm old, so these people I'm visiting are in their 40s and beyond, So yeah, I
Hey,
agree.
whoa. 40 is
I
not
agree.
old, kid. Let's
Okay.
move that
All right.
number up to
All right.
50. Okay, I got
All
another 10
right.
years.
All right. Let's
40
back
is
that one up
young.
a bit. Okay. Back off of that one a bit.
Let's keep me
Isaac
out of
says
this,
he's
all right?
yeah, Isaac says he's gonna try and jump in soon
Okay.
because he's busy doing some other stuff. We got about 7 people watching. I wish more would jump in. Have you guys seen all the other conversations I've been getting into? Deb, I know you've seen some
No,
of them.
I've been so stupid busy.
Oh, I've been going after, I've been offending damn near everybody. Trying to
You?
get their, yes, trying to
No,
get
you're
their
so full of
attention.
joy.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I used to say that, I was grumpy for everybody else down. I'd take their grumpy down to the Capitol. Now I'm just putting my own grumpy out to the world, and it's coming hard. But yeah, I've been offending as many Christians as possible. That's kind of my goal right now. I'd
Oh,
like them all. I'd like them all to wake up and to
well, I
possibly.
mean, not all the Christians, just some of them.
Well, yeah, but you have to offend them all to get their attention.
Okay.
And so, and a meme can't say, oh, and if this doesn't, it can't give a disclaimer as to who I'm not trying to offend. So, I just have to offend everybody at once and then hope that my friends will take the time to try and figure out what the hell I'm talking about.
We used to, we have a restaurant.
Some aren't. What's that?
Oh, I said we have a restaurant, and so we used to be open on Sundays. We don't open on Sundays anymore. But you always had like a group of tables that would come in, and we knew them all by the different churches they were at. Like, oh well, we have the Baptist here, we have the Methodist here, and so they were all different groups, and so we would fight over certain denominations. We'd be like, okay, we're getting, because we always like to wait on the Jehovah's Witness because they were like the nicest. So we'd always fight over those. Like, I'll swap you the Jehovah's Witness for the Methodist. And we're like, oh, not today. So it's funny to me because you do make that assessment on how people are or how they treat you based on how they come in and eat. So this 21 years being open there, you kind of start to develop a preconceived idea about people. It's not right, but I mean, it happens.
Sunday is a fun day to do that. I was a restaurant manager at a Golden Corral in Tulsa for a few years. and then out in Owasso. And it was a complete different crowd, I assure you. But Sundays, yeah, you could tell. And the different groups all sat together. Some tipped good, some didn't.
Right.
For the most part, not so great. But we had a buffet. So believe me, we had a line out the door for half the day. I mean, it was nuts. It was just nuts. But yeah, no, I've been offending people online because I'm seeing the Handmaid's Tale play out in our
Um,
politics at our state level, and it's driving me nuts. And I'm getting into conversations, and I'm reading this book, and I'm starting to figure out that the problem here, as this lady explains in this book, is where Christianity went, where it took a side turn. Okay. And she's a historian and does a very good job of explaining American evangelical. I can't even say the word. Evangelicals.
Evangelical.
American, yes. She does a very good job of explaining how that was shaped. And right now she's talking about Billy Graham, and so she's a historian. She's also a teacher at a university who teaches religion, and so this is what she does, as well as she grew up in the church. But it's a real eye opener. And when I see what I think for this conversation we'll call the new, or I think is the new, I'm just noticing, Christian nationalist, it's a pretty scary thing. It's a very vengeful God, and they will take this country back by force, and they will cram that their ideology right onto our lives. It's not a proper interpretation of the Bible. It's morphed so much. And again, I'm getting into these conversations with people who are saying things that, a few days ago, before I started reading this book, I would just like lash back out like, oh, you're just a whatever. And I just go off on them. And now I'm seeing these people say exactly what she says they will say. And doing exactly what she is warning us about. And, again, I'm just getting into the book. I think I'm in the second chapter now, but I watched a couple of 1 hour lectures she gave at different universities about this book before I started the book. And it's been a huge eye opener, a very huge eye opener. And it plays into this, this possible overturning of Roe v. Wade and everything. I mean, that's the reality is, and Lawrence and I talk about this a lot, and, this is what he does for a living. I mean, he's a philosopher, but he's studying religions all the time, all of them. And this anti-abortion movement isn't out of the Bible. This isn't biblical. And they don't these people that are pushing this, and I don't know if I'm not trying to offend you guys yet, but it just isn't right, and it's got to stop. And it's very authoritarianism, and we will live in a dictatorship or an authoritarian state, a theocracy, if these people get their way, and we will do it in a very short amount of time. It's just around the corner. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking the next election.
Just to clear that up, I mean, I am a conservative, but I'm pro-choice. So I take different stances on different things. So I'm never straight across.
Well,
I mean,
for me, it's not about being. For me, it's about we all want to save life.
right.
Let's start with the mother.
Yeah.
And those that don't want to start with the mother aren't coming at this from the right direction.
Well,
And they've used, and this lady again does a great job of explaining this. They've used their religion
right.
to force this down, and she does a good job explaining why and when and how, and it's just a real eye opener.
Yeah,
I
well, and
suggest
you're right, and you're
everybody read
right.
the
I
book.
mean, if you're pro, life, then my first priority is obviously going to be with the mother because that's a life. You know, for me, if there was a family or there was a mother and she had a child that was in an accident and that child no longer had brain activity and was on life support, and that mother would have to make the choice of when do I pull the plug. Well, I don't feel that different about a child or a fetus as it needing that life support, and it's up to the mother, when that life is gone, because that's really who is responsible for that life anyway. So, I mean, I hate to look at it in that way, but to me, I can understand the same emotions I would feel about someone else's kid on life support versus someone else's fetus. It's just not my business. It's
Yeah,
not my business,
I can
when
work with
somebody.
that. Look, what to spread this out a little bit, what everybody needs to be aware of is, and probably is, but I'll repeat it, Roe v. Wade was settled on privacy. It had nothing to do with the fetus. Roe v. Wade has nothing to do with a baby. It has to do with privacy. So when Roe v. Wade gets overturned, it starts off with the privacy of the mother.
Yeah.
And you would think that that would then be limited to her reproductive rights, but no, it will extend beyond that. And these trigger laws will cause enormous problems. A miscarriage in Oklahoma will have to be investigated.
Yes.
All right, there's Isaac. So every time you report to your doctor that you're pregnant, the state then has a position in that pregnancy.
Yes.
From that moment forward, the state then has interest in your pregnancy, and if it fails, if it's terminated because you fall, if it's a miscarriage, that will have to be proven. But again, this then extends beyond women to bring it home to everybody else, like Isaac, who's joining us here. This will extend to everybody else. They're already talking about, and a lot of people don't believe me when I say this, and I don't care. Believe me or not, I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true, but I've had elected officials tell me the plan, and the plan to come after birth control next year. So those that think this will stop with Roe v. Wade just aren't listening. I mean, they will control everything. They'll come after birth control, and then they will come after any LGBT rights they might have here in this state. They'll undo those, and then they'll undo same-sex marriage. I guess that'd be part of the same thing. And then who knows what's after that? They're going to undo interracial marriage, because those that say that that's extreme, well, it's only been around for what, 80 years, 60 years, not that long. Roe v. Wade was around for 50. Women have only had the right to vote for what, just over 100. I'm sure we could undo that. I mean, if we're going to do this, let's just go back. If the Constitution is such a perfect thing that we should never change unless it works for us, but shouldn't change anything else, then let's go back to just men that own land can vote. I own some land. I'll still get to vote.
Me too. Wait, no, because I'm not a man.
You're not a man. You're not a man. You won't get to vote.
Hey, did they pass that thing where we can't choose our gender?
Yes, I believe they did. Hello, Isaac.
Hey, Chris. How's it going, guys?
You're coming in right in the middle of one, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit back and watch this one play out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll bring it back to cannabis. We can do that. And because I'm sure that's probably what you'd much rather talk about. It's a much safer
It
subject.
is
So,
much safer.
so go ahead. We'll give you the floor for a bit. Tell us about the petitions. We're happy to hear all about it.
Well, I mean, the petitions are the petitions. They're a lot of work, and I feel like sometimes people forget how much work went into passing 788 and all the efforts that went in before. And I fear that with these petitions that people won't get fired up in time enough to actually make the impact that needs to be made. And I'm hoping that they will catch fire sooner than later. And I have some reasoning for that, like, because everybody has a knee-jerk reaction to what they think might happen if this or that or the other. I was pretty much against these petitions a year ago whenever they first were being drafted, just because I didn't like a whole lot of the stuff that I seen in them and stuff. But I really respected the fact that so much public input was taken and addressed and put into all of the petitions. All three of them that I see out there have changed dramatically from what they were in the past. But I'm shocked every day going into all these stores, all these dispensaries I go into every day, to find out that the store owners, the managers, the bud tenders, they all think that our legislature gave us 788. I'm just completely and totally blown away by the fact that there's a whole state full of people here in our industry, working within our industry, that have no clue about the petitioning process. All the efforts that were made for half a decade to get 788 across the finish line. And so, like, I'm seeing these knee-jerk reactions now where people will say things like Oklahoma isn't ready for rec. And I can understand that reaction to a degree, but most of the time it's based off of what they've seen go on in other states. And I will agree with most anybody that we should not implement rec in the way in which other states have, if it was detrimental to those states. I mean, like, why do something the same way that another state did it if what the other state did wasn't good? And I really believe that these constitutional amendments at this moment in history are definitely needed. And I know that people sometimes can be concerned about the constitutional amendment because it's harder to change, but that's why I feel like they're so important, is because they're harder to change. You have spent a lot of time at the Capitol trying to lobby the lawmakers and get them to see certain perspectives. And I know Norma Sapp has been there for a long time trying to sway lawmakers to see our side. And honestly, I just feel like it's easier to convey our side to the voting public at this point than it is to try to get enough lawmakers on our side to create the change that we want made.
See, and
Okay.
that's where it's
ahead.
difficult for me, because like I hear people say the changes that we want to see made. And so I see the overall consensus. I see a certain group that think these are the changes that need to be made. But then, being at the Capitol and talking to other businesses, those changes they see that need to be made don't coincide with the changes that other groups feel they need to be made. So, it's hard for me to say, what it is that people genuinely want to change.
Yeah. Isaac, did you catch the beginning of the video?
I've been in and out.
Okay. Well, let me. I was saying something about what she was talking about. Do you want to explain it, or Teresa? Do you want to explain what we were talking about earlier?
Oh, as far as the constitutional amendments.
No, I mean that. Look, when I was at the Capitol, and the last time
Oh,
that
yes,
this
yes.
community had people at the Capitol, the last time a bunch of people showed up, a few of them with signs. I wouldn't say a bunch. I'd say 30 people, maybe.
About 30, 35 people.
Half of
It,
the room was there complaining to me. I spoke to both sides. Half
yes,
of the room was there complaining to me about bills that the other half was there pushing.
yes. So the
And I tried to
community,
get, and I've
yeah,
tried to get everybody, that's what she's talking about. I've tried to get everybody to notice that every lobbyist down there is taking cannabis money. Yeah, I'm sure some of it's from out of state, big business people. I have
not
no
all.
doubt. Because guess what? They live here too now. But anyway, not all, some from those here that can't afford it. I understand the mom and pops can't. I get it.
Well,
What I'm
and
saying is, I know mom and pop shop owners that are down there pushing these laws.
Mhm.
I,
A lot, I like the legislation didn't just wake up one day and come up with all these ideas. These ideas were being given to the legislation by business owners and by activists. And I've watched it time and time again, just being up there and knowing who's who. Like there is a certain amount of the population that doesn't want those things to change, and some people that do want them to change. I don't know the consensus overall, but to say we want to make this set in stone because, this is what we want, there are a lot of people that don't want that.
but set in stone doesn't mean permanent. Set in stone means that if the
It
lawmakers
doesn't,
need
but
to make
I know how
changes, that it
difficult,
needs.
but I know
Hold on, Teresa. Let's don't interrupt. Go ahead, Isaac.
Uh, to put things in a constitutional amendment simply means that when the lawmakers want to make bigger changes than what's allowed for in the constitutional amendment, that it has to be voted on. And I don't think that
Right.
that's necessarily a bad check or balance to try to make sure that we at least have a say, because right now, if there is a bill that we wanted to block, we don't have the support to block it. I mean, like, it's dumb luck. I mean, if it wasn't for this abortion situation coming up this session, we would have had a lot more cannabis legislation that got heard and pushed through. Some of it good, some of it bad, but there wasn't a whole lot of anybody driving the train on it because the legislatures won't let anybody drive the train on it.
There
And
were
we've
people
got to.
driving, but there were
Well,
people that were driving the train, is what I'm telling you. Is there were businesses that were pushing that very legislation that some of us were fighting.
well,
Sure, I mean,
hang on, hold on. Let me add this. Isaac, I think that at least what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to add to what you said, Isaac, that you're finding a lot of either apathy or people who just don't know the history. Okay. And what we're saying is all of that, along with some of what we're saying of talking about some misunderstandings and different opinions in the community, is there, and this is my question, do you think, as somebody who's passing these out, I know you said you're worried, do you think there's even a chance?
I think there's a big chance, but people actually need to start plugging in. And like I'm frustrated. I'm easily frustrated these days, and that's my issue to deal with. It's just, you try for so many years to educate the public, and you think that you finally get over some of the hurdles, only to find out that the public's staying just as uneducated as they ever were because they won't take 15-20 minutes out of their life to actually sit down and read something rather than just listening to other people's opinions. And so it forces people like us to constantly have to put our opinions out there in hopes that enough people hear it that it might trigger them to actually read and do a little bit of research. As far as the people that's been down there at the Capitol, y'all have been there. I have not. But how many people are down there? How many lobbyists are down there? How many business owners over the last 6 months would you say, if you had to estimate, have you seen down there actually talking to their lawmakers, actually trying to sway somebody's opinion one way or the other?
I know off the top of my head of I think it's 4 or 5 large companies and an entire trade organization that pay one lobbyist.
Mhm.
because
And
my
then
perspective.
business owners, maybe 5.
So out of the 9,000 plus licenses that we still have in play today, we've got less than 50 making the arguments for us.
No. Well, probably yes, but that's I'm giving one example. There's about 30 lobbyists down there, and I don't know of any of them that aren't getting cannabis. Well, no, I know of one guy who gets all of his money from Bob Howard and wouldn't take money from anybody else, I'm sure. So, other than that, every lobbyist down there has cannabis clients. Maybe a
Because
few, maybe one. I don't know the numbers. I can't answer.
Like there'll
that.
be one attorney that'll have maybe like 4 that represent 4 different businesses that they're lobbying for. So
let's just say there's 1,000 businesses being represented there.
No, you're
And-
Lawrence or Isaac. You're right. The number is shit. We'll go with your 50. Okay, I got no
Yeah.
problem with your 50.
yeah, 50.
We'll go with your 50.
But I'm in and out of these dispensaries every day, so I'm catching it on both ends. I'm dealing with growers and processors on one side that's desperately trying to get their product out there and make enough money to keep their electric on, and then I'm dealing with the dispensaries that are also struggling. Most of my clientele are the small mom and pops. When I say small mom and pops, I mean like the ones that are actually running their own business. They're the ones being the bud tender, doing the order and doing everything there. They're the one-man show. That's the majority of what my business is, and I take care of about 400 dispensaries on a monthly basis. And out of those 400 dispensaries, I would say 19 out of 20 tell me that they're struggling to even get enough business through the door. They've lowered their prices. They've brought in all the product that people say that they want, but they just don't have enough customers. And that's a lot to do with the fact of how many dispensaries are out there. And so like, I'm looking at this like, okay, I have a choice to say, you can either bite the bullet and understand that you got in a flooded market, you rolled the dice and you lost. And I'm sorry that you lost your life savings. I'm sorry you lost your retirement, but you rolled the dice. Or we can push some recreational through before Texas passes. That, I mean, it's like really important if we're going to take advantage of a recreational market that we do it before Texas does anything.
I think that I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think I just heard everything that I said when we showed the community 806. All the reasons why, to save the mom and pops, to try and increase the customers, because it was the only way. If we weren't going to limit the market, it was the only way that we were going to save these stores. I'm sorry. I know I interrupted you. I want you to finish, but I really felt strongly about pointing that out.
No, and that's just it, Chris. So much of the time, these business owners stay so busy just trying to keep their business above water that they're not plugging into these videos. They're not watching what you say. They're not watching what I say, because they're busy running their business. And I get that part of it. But I don't feel like the smaller businesses are being represented in an equal way there at the Capitol. And even if they were, I don't know if there's enough lawmakers that would have empathy for them to really try to make any difference. It really feels like right now it's an assault on trying to bring the license numbers down, because it would be easier for them to deal with a smaller amount of license numbers.
Well, I
don't
completely
agree with that.
hold on,
Sorry.
Teresa. I'll let you go 1 second. I completely agree they're being underrepresented. I do. I completely completely agree. The small mom and pop shops are getting little to no representation, and you're right. Compared to the bigger companies willing to make campaign contributions, they're going to have a tough time getting attention. Teresa, I'll let you go ahead.
I think that we don't have very much representation in the small business, but I don't think that we don't have support up there, because I feel like we have, there were a lot of things that could have gone through that were fought on the basis of how it would hurt small business. So we didn't lose on everything like we could have. And, I know that I am small business and I'm up there, and I know that I've been able to have great conversations with legislators. I don't know if anybody else has, but I don't feel like I've not made progress in having conversations. I feel like I've definitely had those.
I will say the argument, it definitely could be worse, while maybe true, really isn't. I mean, that I understand what Isaac is saying. I have to take a side on this. I understand what he's saying. I agree. The mom and pops aren't being represented nearly enough.
And
Again,
so,
I think, go ahead, Isaac, since I jumped in on you earlier, you go ahead.
so I've been hearing a lot of people say that they think that Oklahoma isn't ready for rec, and when I look at 818 and 819 and again 820, because it has criminal justice reform, if we were to pass all three of those, essentially what would happen is 60 days after passage, the dispensaries would be able to start selling to non-card holders. When you look again at the population of Texas being 27 million people, a third of those people we can assume are at least part-time cannabis users. So you take a third of 27 million, that's 9 million people that possibly are going to need to come to Oklahoma to be able to get product. Considering our population is 3.8 million, this would bring the traffic through the doors to be able to make those growers, those processors, and those dispensaries profitable, where right now there's not a lot of them who are.
I want to add, I remember Lawrence and I going over the numbers and stating for so long that we would draw 8 to 10 million people out of Texas, which is right there at your 9 million number. So,
Yeah.
you know, I agree. We need rec if we want to have a market that has no limit on numbers. We definitely have to have a much bigger market.
For me, it's heartbreaking for me. Like, my business struggles just like everybody's does, but I didn't put my life savings into it. I just put the last 3 years of my life of sweat and blood into it. But I didn't make a big financial investment. I just bootstrapped it and started with nothing. So if I end up with nothing, I haven't lost much except for time. But I've met with so many growers and processors who did, take all of their money, put into a business, and now their business is sinking because they can't move enough product, whether they're on the processing, grow, or dispensary side. They just can't get enough business. And I think this would actually possibly help save them from losing everything, from losing their homes, from losing their life savings. I told growers early on that they should make a business plan to where they could afford to keep their lights on and their employees paid if they had to sell their flower as cheap as $500 a pound. And they all laughed at me and said that they would never have to sell their flower for $500 a pound. Well, right now it would keep their business open had they worked their business plan to be able to see this flooded market coming. And so it's just heartbreaking to me to know that there's so many that are just going to take that $250,000 hit, or however much money they sunk into it, because they're out of options. And I see these petitions as being that light at the end of the tunnel. That's not a freight train, that might actually give them some hope and give them a chance to at least recoup their investment. I mean, we're not even talking about making money off their investment, but just trying to recoup their investment.
Okay, so let's change this just a little bit, because again, I know you missed some of the beginning, Isaac, but actually, me and the two wonderful ladies here, we actually came to an agreement, not all for exact same reasons, but we came to an agreement that we all agreed rec needed to happen at this point for whatever reason. You feel that way too. So all four of us on this wall here, we all agree for whatever reason that is, rec has to happen. So let's move it on to what's the likelihood, and if so, how is it likely to pass? What's the likelihood of 819 versus what's the likelihood of 820, and why? And I'll ask all of you. Isaac, you know that you probably know the most here about the petitions. Well, let's just go with that for now. And so we'll let you go first with this and tell us why you think which one has the ability to get past the line.
So there's a couple of different levels here, but let's start with 820. It only needs about 80,000 signatures to be able to
96,000. 96,000.
from what I understand, and again, I haven't had these conversations with people who are behind it, but from what I understand, it has good funding behind it.
Yes.
They need a lot less signatures, and they have a lot more money. It would be shocking to me if they didn't get the signatures that they need for 820 to be on the ballot. It's
Okay.
part of the reason why I've spent so much time pushing the other two, is because I feel like 820 has enough money to be
Right.
able to get it across the finish line, that it probably doesn't need as much grassroots effort to get it done.
Okay. All
Uh,
right. Hold on one second. I'm gonna change my strategy here and break it up just a little bit. You've just addressed 820, and why you don't feel the need to put too much effort into it, which makes perfect sense. Deb, what do you think about 820 and its likelihood?
I'm kind of with Ryan on, I think they've got the money to get it covered, to get the signatures. I heard they're paying like $26, $27. Never mind. I just heard they were paying well for signatures or by the hour. And I don't even know if they're gathering signatures on 820 yet. They aren't, are they?
That's what Isaac's talking about. He's been putting out the petitions, so they're gathering signatures as of
820,000?
a few days ago, right?
Well, I wanted
Yeah.
to ask Isaac, you know, it never really crossed my mind that 818 and 819, if they were sending them from dispensaries, that they would have a problem getting the signatures. Do you know how the signature gathering is going?
Okay, hold on. We'll get to that part in just a second.
Okay.
What's the likelihood you think of 820 getting enough votes? I think we probably all agree they'll get their signatures. So
I bet the
if,
farm it's on the ballot, and I have no idea from there.
okay,
how it would
Isaac, I
run
should have
run
asked
the
you this too.
district.
Isaac, I should have had you finish up with this. What do you think the likelihood is of it passing? And then Teresa, we're going to jump right to you.
So I think that if you were to poll all of the registered voters, polling numbers would probably show that it passing by 75, 80%. But if you actually go to the polls that day and the people who take the time out to show up and vote, I think that it would be a pretty close race. I think it might. I think it might be, it might pass, but it will be in the low 50 percentile that it passes with, like maybe 52, 53%. Because I know that there will be some negativity about it, because people have their preconceived notions of what they
Right.
think it will mess up.
Right. Okay. Teresa, what do you think about 820? It's likely to get the signatures. I think we all agree they will. What do you think the likelihood is the majority of Oklahomans vote for it?
I think that 820 kind of encompasses a larger demographic of what's wanted, and it leaves it a little bit more broad that people will feel more comfortable with it. So I think that 820 has a pretty good shot.
Okay.
I mean, I see it pretty high up there. If anything passes, that would be the one that I would think would
Okay.
pass.
All right. Well, I kind of agree with all of you then on that one for sure. I didn't hear anything I didn't disagree with. And Isaac, I think your numbers are probably right about right, where it passes with 52, 53%. Barely, not quite as good as 788, but gets across the line. Now, about 819 and 820, okay? And let's talk about them separately. 819, Isaac, what do you think the likelihood, and you're handing out petitions, that tell us, is it enthusiastic enough that you feel like we're going to get there? And if so, do you think and I want you to finish up, so I'm going to give this broad question. If that happens, what do you think the likelihood is of the general public, of the majority of Oklahomans voting for it, and why?
So if 819 gets the signatures, and really funding is what I see being the only roadblock on the 18 and 19 being able to get the signatures, is the funding. But if, let's assume that they get the signatures and it's going to a vote, I think that for one reason on 819, I think that it will pass with a higher percentage than 820 will, and this is why. 819 doesn't require the dispensaries to have to get any additional licensing. So basically 60 days after passage, they would be able to sell to non-card holders. that is something that anybody who is looking forward to a recreational market, they're obviously going to want it faster, and so that would be reason to vote for it. The dispensaries, I would think would be very much for it and would be promoting for it and pushing for it, simply because they're not going to have to buy any extra licensing. It isn't going to create a separate market of any kind. It's just simply going to be a different tax rate. So I think 819, if it gets on the ballot, has a chance at passing at a little bit higher percentage than what I would give 820.
Okay. Debbie, what about you?
Well, as far as getting on
819.
the ballot, 819, I just really thought, it's just from my experience on working on past petitions and struggling and all that, I can't see not getting the signatures, having the dispensaries as a resource. I just, maybe it's
Okay.
wishful thinking, I don't know. I just see 819 making the ballot. And it's
Okay.
all gonna be in the campaigns as to whether it's got a shot at passing or not. I've got my own ideas on how to promote it to people that don't like pot, and that's just saying, stop this madness, you know, and because this reins it in. This reins everything in. But I don't know. I think it'll make I think it'll get the signatures. I really do. Don't know if it has a chance of passing. Hopeful.
Okay. Teresa, what about you? 819. What do you think the likelihood of signatures and the likelihood of passage if it gets the signatures?
I think that the same way we beat 806 and 807 is going to be the obstacle 819 faces, and it's a constitutional amendment. I know that when we fought against 806, 807 campaign, that was our
Those
biggest.
weren't, but no, those weren't constitutional amendments.
806 and 807 were.
No, I don't think they were.
They were. They were. That's what Kiesel changed in 820. We had a conversation about it.
Okay.
That's-
All right. I'll take your word for it. All right. Little
Yeah.
history
Yeah,
problem here.
no,
It's all right.
that
Memory
was-
problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I did discuss that with Ryan Kiesel, which is what I told him
Okay.
I wouldn't fight him this year. But on 820, one of the incentives and why people probably would like it is it doesn't allow any new businesses to apply. It's going to give that first year to already existing businesses.
How will
So-
that work with the 2-year moratorium?
I'm not exactly sure, to be honest with you. That would be something that I would ask Ryan, and I can if you'd like.
No, I
That is-
think it'll be a part of a valid conversation if we get
Oh,
them
yeah.
on the ballot, because if a moratorium keeps anybody from getting licenses, by the time the 1 year is up that allows the original businesses to license, everybody would be able to get licensed because we were all
Well,
waiting 2
but
years.
well, hold on, just off the top of my head, the moratorium is on any more medical marijuana licenses. It's not on any recreational licensure. So
Exactly.
if 820 passes, it's not the same license. So it won't be stopped. It's not in the moratorium. It won't be considered. Does
I
that
thought they
sound
were going to
reasonable?
operate off the. Are they not going to operate off the same license under 819?
819 and 818, yes, it's all in the same license, but 820, she was bringing up,
Right.
820 does require a separate license. So how's the
Right.
moratorium affect that? I don't believe that it does, because we're talking about two different types of licensure, one being a medical marijuana license and the other being a full access adult use over 21 license. So does that sound
Right,
about
and
right?
then-
Isaac?
Yeah, it would
And-
really, I would have to look at the verbiage of the moratorium and see if they specifically said medical marijuana license or if they just said agency licenses.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to
Alright.
look at that just to make sure.
Yeah. Well, darn it. Lawrence was watching TV tonight, or I would have got him in here with all the, his fact sheets, and he could have.
Yeah, we got that
Answered
empty
all that
canvas.
for
We
us.
don't know what to do with.
We have a seat for him and everything. He just couldn't be bothered to show up. I think he's watching Star Trek or something. I don't know. He's a geek. What can I say? Big shocker, I know. Isaac, do you remember this picture?
I can't see it. My screen's too small.
Okay, well, it's a crane outside the Capitol in 2018 when we were going up there on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
You may have even been with me that day. It's an outhouse being held up by a crane over the Capitol.
I don't remember it, but that's
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's not photoshopped. It's really a shitter right on top of the shit house. I mean, the Capitol. Oops.
Yeah, guys, I know a lot of where my perspective comes from is that we've been fighting for so long for legalization, and I wish that I had more faith that we could get more done with the lawmakers. I've seen the obstacles be there so much over the last 6, 7, 8 years that I've been paying attention, that it just doesn't leave me a lot of hope that they can all agree enough to be able to pass stuff that would be beneficial from my opinion.
That's a pretty reasonable opinion.
And
I think
see,
we
and
can all say that.
well, no,
and
no,
that's
here's
why I lean so much towards the petitions being a good option for us, is because like we can go and spend hours and days and months lobbying them and trying to talk sense into them and everything. But it just feels like it's an easier path to be able to convince the general public than it is the lawmakers, because they're often looking at, well, I live in a very red county and my county didn't vote yes for 788, so I'm not going to go there with you because the yes vote didn't get my county or my district.
See, and I have a different perspective just based on my experience. And I like we said earlier, there isn't much representation for the small business. Well, do you know how hard it is to corral the small business and get the small business to want to work together and not fight each other? A lot of the things that were happening this session, I was trying to have conversations about last year. And, it becomes an attack and jumping all over me as if I'm the one who created it. Like it's very difficult to work with the general public. So I have a worse experience working with the general public than I have working with the legislators. And I hate even saying that, but that's how it's been for me. Like it is really hard getting all of the industry in sync and not at each other's throats.
Well,
I-
I'm not only in the middle on the wall, but I'm in the middle on this. I completely agree with
Me
both
too.
of you. Although I completely agree with both of you. You're both right. Okay. In this case, you are both right. And I've been on the receiving end of a shit show coming from both the Capitol and the community. So I agree. You're both right. So
I'll
it will
tell
be
you,
interesting to see how the politics play out. Go ahead, Isaac.
I'll tell you, Chris, there's probably nobody in this industry that's taken more heat at different times than me. And the general public, you'll have people that will be negative and be just shitty individuals. But if you can have a thick skin and not take the bait with those shitty individuals, the positive individuals, the people who love and support what you're about and what you're doing, they will come out of the woodwork and give you that strength to know that, hey, yeah, there might be 5 people over here that hate your guts, but there's 1,000 people over here that love you. And that's how I get past the negative of the general public, where if I go talk to a lawmaker and a lawmaker's against me, there's only X amount of lawmakers for me to get through to. And if 2/3 of them are against me, where does that leave me? Where with the general public, if I've got somebody who's against me, I just need to go to somebody else and convince somebody else to cancel that negative person's opinion. If that makes any sense.
It's a lot of
Certainly
work.
does.
It's a lot of work there.
Everything is.
It really is.
I've, as I was saying earlier, I've offended an enormous amount of people in the last week. I think I've only blocked 3. But I've received private messages from people telling me about being molested at their church camp, or their babysitter or whatever the case may be, and how they've never told anybody this before. And I've received other messages like that from people who have been in the abortion fight I've been in. I received letters from people or messages from people who have been raped multiple times. I've gone and visited with people and had to listen to these ladies tell me their story. So yeah, I take the bait a lot, but I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm not gonna stop. And because those people that reach out, like you say, give me all the strength I need to put up with the few I have to block.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I know I've enjoyed it, but I think we're gonna wrap it up since it's almost 11 o'clock. What do you think?
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
my
it is
battery's
late.
about to go dead.
Okay. Well, look, we can do this again. I mean, this has been fun. And anybody watching, we have, I guess, 9 people watching. You can join us next time. Again, we can change the scenery and put us in a different room that sits as many as want to join us. And you can tell us what you think. Everybody here gets equal time, or at least that's how I try and do it. So, but thank you all 3 for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all 3 of you. You're all personal friends of mine, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Hey,
Thank
and
you. We
while we're on here,
appreciate you.
Chris,
Thank
Mhm.
you,
let
guys.
me just say, Chris, thank you for putting up with all the shit that you've put up with over the last few years. Because being in the public eye and trying to fight to do the right thing, it's not easy, and there's very few people that understand it. So if I know you don't hear the thank yous enough, and I just want to say thank you for the efforts that you put in, even if they're fruitless. I appreciate seeing the effort be made, because I knew that people like you would need to step up and make those efforts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, kids, we're gonna get out of here. But again, let's do it again in a couple days. We'll talk about something else. We'll get some
Yeah.
new people in here. We can tell them all about the petitions, and we can do it again.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, guys.
Okay, guys, thank you. Stay grumpy.
Thank you.
See you on the road.
Bye.
Love you guys.